Right. So welcome, everyone. Welcome to Daniel, Huat Cheng, Mark, and Sue. It's a pleasure seeing all of you this evening to this discussion on the resource conversation, which is based on Michael Hall's book, Coaching Conversations. So as probably all of you already know that these meetings that we are having in the meta coaching series, I'm taking chapter by chapter from Michael's book on coaching conversation and bringing it to you as a discussion. So this is part of our monthly meta coaching series, and as you all know, we also have the Neuro-Semantics series, the relationship series, and also the parenting series. So it's a pleasure to see the four of you this evening who are familiar with our sessions that we are having. So in that case, I don't need to introduce myself because you already know me a little bit or much more, and that's a good thing. Now, in this session we have this evening in the 90 minutes together on this topic of the resource conversation, I'll be covering three main topics. Yeah. One is the theoretical framework, two, the resources in the power matrix, and three are the resource questions. So basically, those are the three main topics that I'll be bringing to you this evening. And as per usual, I will pause for discussion after each main point, and I would like to invite you to ask questions or to comment or to contribute whatever it is that you want to bring to the discussion this evening. Now, I would also want to encourage you, for those of you who like thinking out loud, so if you want to think out loud after each point, go ahead, just unmute yourself and you can think out loud and we can contribute together to what you are thinking this evening. Okay. Now, as you all know, my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our own silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. Because if we get too serious, then we get stupid. Okay, so our discussion this evening on the resource conversation, we are going to be addressing around these few questions. One question is it possible to elicit and create mind, body, and emotion resources through a coaching conversation? What does a resource conversation sound like? How is it structured? Can we presuppose potential resources in clients and then call those resources into being with our questions? If we can do that, how does that process work? What skills do we need to do that elegantly? And another question is, how do we engage in a resource conversation so that it creates the kinds of conversation that a client desires? So those are the things that the questions that we'll be exploring throughout this discussion this evening. So I would like to move to the first point, that is on the theoretical framework. So what I'll do is that I will share my screen, because when I share my screen, it's designed to stimulate your thinking. Where is the share screen button? Yes, right. Okay. The theoretical framework, the first thing is coaching as a paradigm begins with several assumptions about people and human nature. Assumptions that set it apart from the traditional psychological models. These assumptions are based on some of the basic premises of the human potential movement. And coaching begins from these ideas about people. So let's take a look at some of these ideas about people. There are altogether, I think, about 14, 15 points over here. So I decided to put them in point form on the screen. One is that people are basically healthy, not pathological. We are referring to the main body of people, the majority of people, that people are sane and people are well. There are people who are unwell and who may be insane. However, coaching doesn't apply to them. They need remedial work. So when we talk about coaching people, the large body of the people, the majority of people, they are basically healthy. They are not pathological. So this is the first one. The second one is that people have an innate urge for growth and development. And those of you who have children or you notice children, they just want to do the next thing, do the next thing. So that urge for growth and development is embodied in a human being. The third one is that people will naturally self-actualize once they feel safe, secure, validated, and respected. And I would like you to take it and to also take this and put it the other way around, that if people don't feel safe, they are not secure, they are not validated in their lives, they are not respected, those are issues that will prevent them from self-actualizing. So when we create the environment where people feel safe, they feel secure, validated, and respected, they will naturally self-actualize. Next one is that people have all that they need to follow and actualize their dreams. People have all that they need. It is already there. We come into this world with all of the things that we need in order to follow and actualize our dreams. Next is people operate from positive intentions, seeking to fulfill their values and mission. Positive intentions in the sense that whatever that people do, they do it in order that they can get some benefit. So that is the positive intention. They have a certain benefit intention that they want to achieve for themselves. Next one is that people get off track through limiting beliefs and erroneous ideas. And that also explains why the previous point, even though people have positive intentions, if they have limiting beliefs and erroneous ideas, they may do things that would go against for the betterment of themselves and others. So people can get off track through limiting beliefs. So next point is that people have sufficient resources to solve their problems. One of the NLP presuppositions that we keep mentioning about is people have the resources they need to succeed. So it is already there, it is inbuilt. Next one is people make the best choices when given a menu of choices and the freedom to choose. It is only when people feel that they are not free to choose, then they make decisions that go counter to what society requires. However, when people make decisions, that is the best choice for them at that time. People mostly need guidance and some facilitation in order to access their resources and make their dreams happen. And taking in the context of parents, that is where the major role of parents that you need to play. to give the children the guidance and to facilitate them in order that they can access their resources, because we come into this world with all the resources that we need. It's just that we have not learned how to access those resources. We have not learned how to access our resource of thinking. We have not learned how to manage our resource of feeling. We have not learned how to use our resources of saying and doing. So we need guidance. People need guidance for those. Okay. Next one is that people naturally want to solve problems and love to stretch and meet new challenges. If people are bored, it's because they are not given a challenge. So when people are in a situation where they face challenges, they want to solve those challenges because that's part of human beings' creativity. And last but not least here is that people will naturally assume responsibility and ownership and become proactive in living if given the chance. People are not irresponsible. They want to be responsible. They want to take ownership if they are given a chance. So these are the premises that we have in the human potential movement. These are the ideas that we have, that we hold in mind as we coach. So this is where the resource conversation comes in. So what's at the center of these assumptions? At the core of these assumptions is our belief that as human beings, we don't need to be fixed, cured, or psychoanalyzed. And why not? Because we already have the ingredients of success within us. We come into this world, we have our purposes, our roles in this world. The ingredients are already there. As Abraham Maslow puts it, the actualizing person is the person who, not with everything given or put in, but the person with nothing taken out. So the ingredients are already there. So having capacities for intelligence and creativity, we only need to tap into these capacities to unleash and facilitate their development. We have far more potentials and resources that we have utilized or dared to believe that we have. So maybe some of you have come across this saying that we, as human beings, we have more talents. God's gift to man is more talents that he can use in his lifetime. Man's gift to God is how much of that talent that he can develop in his lifetime. So all of the ingredients are there. So are we making all of the dishes? So taking in the metaphor of cooking, you have the ingredients for your cooking. So all of the ingredients are there. So are you making all of the dishes that you are capable of making? So maybe you are not using some of the ingredients because you have not learned how to make that dish in your life before. So we have incredible resources for learning, for discovery, and creating new and better maps. Coaching a resource conversation plays off these premises as it invites the clients into a new way of thinking about life's everyday challenges. In a resource conversation, we coach clients to focus preeminently on finding and creating solutions. Doing this shifts the client's focus from problems, regrets, resentment, complaints, excuses, and pains, and the things that go wrong or could go wrong. Some people, their energies are focused on that. In the resource conversation, we shift the focus Our focus instead is a problem-centered, a solution-centered focus. The conversation orbits around the spheres of resources and creatively considering new possibilities. We coach to tap into the natural inner resources and to recover the natural creativity inherent in us all. We coach to explore with the client those sparkling moments. Every one of us have experienced multiple sparkling moments. So we want to get the client to explore the sparkling moments where they are unnamed resources which remain ready to be discovered and exploited for living life with more passion and authenticity. For the coach, there are numerous coaching skills presupposed in this approach. What are they? The main one here is that the coach assumes that this approach assumes that the coach has the ability to see and call for solutions in the midst of problems. So that's our role as a coach. So that's why the 14 or 15 premises that we have about people are important for us to hold in mind. When we as a coach hold those premises about people in mind, it allows us to have that ability to see and call the solutions from the client themselves. For this, the coach has to be able to elicit states, validate the best, reinforce first approximation by cheerleading, by being present to the client, believing in the client's potential, hold a vision of what's possible, and stand in awe of the possibilities. So these are the theoretical frameworks that we have when we talk about the resource conversations. So to be able to hold this framework, and once we have this framework in place, then when we carry out the resource conversation, then it becomes easy for us to carry it out in order for us to bring out the resources in the client. So I'm going to pause here for our first discussion. So I'd like to invite each and every one of you, if you have a question or comment or just a thought about what I have just spoken just now, just go ahead and unmute your mic and go ahead and speak. Go ahead.
Hi, Marzuki. I haven't read Michael Hall's book, but from what you have just said, it sounds like a lot of principles of NLP. Based on that, is it?
Yes, a lot of principles of NLP are there because just this afternoon, I've been going through the history of the human potential movement, going through the history of NLP, neuro-semantics, self-actualization psychology. It is what I would say is one train, is the same train. That train started off with Abraham Maslow looking into the good side of human behavior. He calls it the positive psychology, the psychology of people who are well. The other psychology is the psychology of people who are sick, the dark side of human nature. So that's the psychology of people who are sick. So Abraham Maslow started those coming in through with the works of Carl Rogers, and then it turned into a movement called the human potential movement. And the human potential movement at Guaching on Saturday, we are going to go in depth on this. And the human potential movement took a spot in a place called Esalen. So Esalen was initially created in order to actualize what the human potential movement was trying to do. It's just that when Bandler and Grinder begin to model, started modeling for NLP, what he did not realize was he was modeling the founders of the human potential movement, Virginia Satir, Fritz Perls, Gregory Bateson were in excellent. So when they encoded NLP, what they did accidentally was to encode all the learnings from the human potential movement going all the way back to Abraham Maslow. So that's why it appears to be in NLP, because NLP to a large extent has roots in human potential movement, in the good human study, and in the works of Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, and all of those people. Okay, so I hope that gives you an idea.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Yes, welcome, Sheila. It's good to see you joining us this evening. We've just covered the first point for this evening, that is on the framework for the resource conversation. So anyone else has got any questions or comments?
I like the word, the sparkling moment, which is you already know the resources that is available within yourself. Then you just focus on the solution, focus conversation to bring out the ability to solve the problem.
Yes, thank you, Guat Cheng. Yeah, the sparkling moments are already there. You have already experienced it. So in a resource conversation, we are helping the clients to use or identify the sparkling moments in order to achieve their goal. Yeah. Mark, in the context of the people, the premises about people, what have you noticed any of those in your swimmers?
Yes, quite a few, but not everyone, depending on their age and yeah, and their goals as well. But some do, I believe so. Yes, at a young age. Yeah. Hopefully, I would like more to actually have more of this framework so that they can understand themselves better.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Thank you. Okay, so everyone good with that first point? Any questions? Right, so let's move to the second point for this evening. That is the resources in the power matrix. Okay, so let me just share my screen again. So when we are having a resource conversation, we are referring to what? Okay, so we are using the term resource, but what precisely is a resource? What do we mean as we use the term resource? The term resource here refers to reserve supplies, support, available means, and abilities for meeting and handling situations. What serves as human resources in the context of success or effectiveness in a given area are our thoughts, emotions, our ideas, actions, speech, and potentials. So those are our human resources, our thoughts, our emotions, our ideas, our actions, speech, and potentials. These are sources into which we can tap. When we tap into them and take ownership of these innate powers, we feel resourceful. So the word resourceful refers to that state that we feel we can use the sources, we can go back to the sources and use them in our life. In the matrix model, we describe these sources as the content of the power matrix. Just as a reminder, there are 5 content matrices that we operate from: the self matrix, the power matrix, the other matrix, time matrix, and also world matrix. So here, in terms of resources, we are referring to the power matrix. What enables us to get back to our sources of power, to our ability to take effective action? So these are the resources that we are referring to. One is our basic human powers for responding to life and the world. So the human resources for responding. We live in a world where we experience something and we respond to life and to the world. And this includes our powers of mind. So this refers to our mental powers, our powers for ideas, our symbolic powers. It's also our powers of emotion. These are emotional powers or emotional intelligence. The third one are our powers of speech, linguistic powers, powers to encode our ideas in symbols of all sorts. And the fourth one is our powers of action, behavioral powers that allows us to take effective actions to make things happen. So the 4 central powers of mind, emotion, speech, and action. So these are our basic human powers for responding to the world around us. So that's the first one. The second one is our sense of empowerment comes from detecting, acknowledging, owning, honoring, and celebrating these powers. Doing this endows us with a sense that we can do something in response to the things that life throws at us, that we are not doomed in a fatalistic way to the throes and fortunes of life. So regardless of what situation that we are in, when we feel that we can do something to respond, we have that sense that of empowerment. We feel empowered. So it contrasts that in a situation where something happens and you feel that you have no control whatsoever. That's that sense of disempowerment. Okay, so when we talk about the resources in the power matrix, this is the second one. Our sense of empowerment. We are able to detect, acknowledge, own, and honor, and celebrate these powers. So that's why in APG, the first thing that we go into is that pattern on to take ownership of our powers. Some people feel that they don't own those powers. That's why they feel in life that they are disempowered in life. Okay. The third one here is our sense of learned optimism, in contrast to learned helplessness. So our sense of learned optimism empowers us to use our power of stubbornness to stubbornly refuse to act helpless or as a victim. Have you come across people who have learned to be helpless? Everything in life, they say, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. So the resource in the power matrix is the learned optimism, that we can use our powers to overcome things. Even though with this COVID, with this lockdown, with all of the issues that we are facing right now, we still have that optimism that I can do something. Even though I cannot get rid of COVID, I can at least go for my COVID vaccination. I can wear the mask when I go out. I distance myself physically from others. So that sense of learned optimism, that when I take all of this into account, then I will be able to put myself in a better position to not be infected by the virus. So this is part of our resource in the power matrix. The fourth resource here is our sense of being active, taking the initiative, developing proactivity as a way of thinking, feeling, speaking, and acting. So it's about being active, taking that initiative instead of being reactive, being at the cause, being at the effect of things rather than being at the cause of things. So this is another resource that we can take initiative about our life. The fifth resource here we are referring to is our sense of having multiple intelligences which supports our creativity and possibility. Multiple intelligences. And many people don't realize those multiple intelligences, because sometimes people measure their intelligence based on school. So if they don't do well in school, therefore they are not intelligent. Yeah, it's just that schools focus on one or two of the 8 intelligences that Dr. Howard Gardner brought to our attention. I hope you are familiar with the 8 intelligences. So very quickly, the 8 intelligences. We have the musical rhythmic intelligence. We have body kinesthetic intelligence. Musical rhythmic, body kinesthetic. We have intrapersonal intelligence, interpersonal intelligence. We have mathematical logical intelligence. We have verbal linguistic intelligence. We have visual spatial intelligence, and also we have naturalistic intelligences. So that's why when we look at people, they have all of those intelligences, and when we bring those intelligences into play, then we can become creative and we can explore the possibilities in life. So that's the 5th resource in our power matrix. And the 6th one is our ability to approach life with an open, curious, playful, respectful, and intelligent orientation. The best example about this are little children. You just look at little children and see how they approach life, how open, curious, playful they are. It's just that as adults, we tend to put those aside. And because of that, when we put those aside, we become less resourceful. So to be childlike rather than childish. Childlike is that state of being open, curious, playful, and respectful about the things that they are learning. Notice how children, they can learn the same thing over and over and over again without getting bored. The same thing. And that is why they learn so fast. So that's also a resource that we need to have. So these are the 6 major resources that is inside of us. The richer and fuller we map out the power matrix, the richer our sense of resources for not only coping with life, but mastering it. This opens up numerous resource states so that we live with a new modus operandi in the world, one of possibility, excitement, and passion. Willingness to experiment, trust of self to recover, that's resilience. The ability to learn, to appreciate and discover better ways of doing things. This is what we refer to as the resources in the power matrix. And in the resource conversation that we are having with our clients, what we are doing is we want to stimulate these resources to come out because it is already there. So these are the resources in the power matrix. So I'm going to pause here and invite you to ask questions or comments with respect to the resources. So we are getting into the specifics of what we mean by resources when we are having this resource conversation. So go ahead and unmute yourself and ask questions or make comments. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Marzuki.
Hey,
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm enlightened by the definition of empowerment, because I think I use this word a lot, but never really understand the word. So when it is break it down into, it is detecting, acknowledgement, and then honoring it, owning it, and also celebrating it. So it gives me more sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate that. Yeah. So this is about denominalizing it. A lot of words that we come across in life, we nominalize them. Empowerment is such a word. Resources is another word. So once we denominalize them, we detail them out, we meta detail them, then we can use them. Otherwise, it's a mystery. Right. So thank you, Daniel. Anyone else has got any questions or comments? Just go ahead. No? Everyone okay with that? Good. Yeah. So if you have questions for later, then we can take them later. So let's move on to the resource questions. Okay, so probably this one I will be going, there are about 20 odd questions as examples, because the design of this sessions on the coaching conversation is to bring to you specific tools that you can use when you are having coaching conversation with the people around you. So these are the the resource questions, examples of resource questions, and I'll slow down at each questions so that you can just register them. Okay, so there are about 21 questions altogether. These are questions that are designed to stimulate or designed to elicit those resources we talked about earlier in the previous topic. Okay, so let's take a look at these questions, resource questions. A question that you can use in order to elicit resource from a person is, what resources do you need to pull off this goal? Oh, by the way, good that in this question he uses the word resource, and Daniel, you mentioned that point just now, is that when we are coaching someone, and that person that you're coaching could be your son, could be your colleague, allow them to understand what we mean by resources, because the tendency for many people, especially in HR, say, human resources, people tend to think of the resources as the external, what's outside there, people, things, machinery. They tend to think those as resources. Over here, we are referring to the internal resource of thinking, feeling, saying, doing, and the skills that a person has in order to strategize their thinking, feeling, and saying, doing. So those are the skills involved. So asking them the question, what resources do you need to pull off this goal? Another question, how resourceful do you feel right now? So this goes into the state, because remember the resourcefulness is the state whether do you feel in control of your resources or not. So how resourceful do you feel right now? Another question. How much more resourceful do you predict that you'll be in 1 week, 1 month, 1 year? And now using the time matrix, putting it into the future, using the powers that they are having with them right now. Another question that you can use. What will you be doing to increase your resourcefulness? Oh, this is a very powerful question, because as we close the gap between our current state with our desired state, this is where we are now, this is where we want to go. In order to close the gap, one of the reasons why, a major reason why I'm not able to close the gap is I don't have the resources that I need. Maybe I don't have the skill, I don't have the competency in a certain area. So what will you be doing to increase your resourcefulness? Okay, I need to learn this, I need to learn this, I need to learn this. So that will increase my resourcefulness. Okay. Is there anything interfering with your best resourcefulness? If so, what is that? And typically, it's an inner game. There'll be something in the beliefs, values, frames that a person has that's interfering with the use of the best resourcefulness of a person. So to help the person to identify that, what are the factors that bring out your resources? And probably this question is relevant or useful to come out when you have explored the previous sparkling moments that a person has experienced, and then asking this question, what are the factors that bring out your resources? So the sparkling moments will trigger the resources that they have used before in order to overcome a similar situation. Okay, so let's take some more questions. In what dimension do you need more resourcefulness? In the mental, emotional, verbal, or behavioral dimension? The mental, emotional is the internal dimension where you strategize your thinking, feeling. Verbal, behavioral is in the external game. So in which dimension do you need more resourcefulness? In the meta coaching, we go to get the person to have a strong inner game so that they can perform a strong outer game out there. So we can see examples of people who have strong inner game in order for them to play out in the outer game. Most recently, we have the Olympics. One of the biggest talking point in the Olympics was Simone Biles, how she stepped back from competing when she realized that she was not in control of her own body. She was not able to command her body to do all of those wonderful things that only she can do in mid-air. When she realized that she was not in full control, she had that mental and emotional toughness to make the decision, no, I cannot continue to proceed because I'll put myself in danger, and I'll also put my team at risk of losing the medal. So that shows the power that she has over her inner game, and also relating it with the outer game. So asking the question, in what dimension do you need more resourcefulness? Another question, what are your best resources when you play to your strength? Each and every one of us have our own strengths and weaknesses. So we want to be able to play to our strength, to be able to recognize what are our best resources. I've given the example of my little, no, she's not little anymore, grasshopper, and she plays to her strength. Her strength is humor, and she plays to her strength, I would say, all the time. And she's using that humor in order to learn new things. And most recently, she's managed to up the quality of her drawing. She's been working on that, and using humor as well to do that. So what are your best resources? Next question. What are some of your resources that are yet untapped and unused? Well, this is a big question for some people, and it can be scary for others, because it can be scary for someone who's been deliberately holding back some of those resources. And yet there are many other people who have who don't even realize they have those resources inside of them. And typically in the workplace, people are tasked to do something in the workplace. They may have talents in something else, yet because the work the work that they do doesn't require that skill, after some time they forgot about that skill that they have. So asking that question, what are some of your resources that are yet untapped and unused? They may have forgotten that they have those resources because they are not using it on a continuous basis. I was reading about Einstein this afternoon, and we know Einstein as that scientist, mathematician, great genius of our time. And yet one of the things that to him stimulate his scientific mind was his violin. He loved playing his violin. So he's tapping into the resource that he has that is outside of the current role that he's playing. He's tapping that resource in order to help him in doing what he's doing here in the here and now. So there's a very powerful question to ask as well. Another question that you can ask, corollary to the previous question, is there anything to stop you from playing to them? Oh, so this might trigger elements of forbidding or tabooing certain things. So what's stopping you from that? So this is how you can explore the frames in a person's mind. Next question. What one resource could you develop that would transform this situation? What one resource? So this is putting the client on the spot, getting them to go into the potentials that they have and to be able to draw them out. So that's why coaching is never advising or telling, because I don't know what's inside a client. So asking this question will allow the client to explore and bring it out. Another question here. Has there ever been a time when the problem didn't occur? What was that like? So they are facing a problem right now and they are scratching their head in order to solve that problem. So by asking this question, we are asking them to go back into their previous experience, find incidences when they don't have this problem, because that will allow them to bring in the resources that they have used before in order to solve this problem in the here and now. Okay, and after that, to ask the question, how do you pull that off? How do you manage to solve that problem before? Let's take a few more questions. Had there ever been a time when you had that resource? What was that like? So following through from the previous question, getting the person to go into their memory bank, to look for the resource that they need and to anchor it into their body, into the states, in order to bring it to bear into this situation. What would it be like if you did step into that state of mind and body or emotion and fully experience it? So this is a grounding question. So the previous questions that we discussed just now is going to a previous occasion where they may have that resource and to ground it to a certain event, and then bring that grounding into the state so that they can now be looking at the issue that they are facing from the state of mind, body, and emotion of somebody having that resource. State is key in a person's operating in this world. We communicate from state to state and we solve our problems from state to state. So we need to get into the right state in order to solve the problem. So asking them, what would it be like if you did step into that state of mind? Getting the person to just test drive that emotion, that state, so that now from that state, they can have more resourceful way of thinking and feeling in order to solve the problem that they are facing. Okay. So another resource question here. Do you know anyone who can do that? If you could step into that person's experience, what is it that allows them to experience that resourceful state? So this is a modeling question. We human beings learn through modeling. We model our parents on how to walk, on how to speak, on the language that we use, the clothes that we wear, the food that we eat. We model the people around us. So this question is a modeling question so that they can look into examples around them and to learn from those examples and bring the resources that they need in order to solve this problem in the here and now. Okay. And another question is, what belief, decision, or memory do you need in order to become more resourceful? So that state of resourcefulness, it's supported by our meanings, understandings, beliefs, frames. So what frames do I need to bring in order to get into that resourceful state? So not just modeling the state, getting in the beliefs as well. So those are the resource conversations, resource questions that we can use in a resource conversation. What I'll do is that if you did not have enough time in order to copy those, I will send you a copy of my PowerPoint there so that you can have those points with you, those questions with you. So I'd like to open this session for any questions or comments that you would like to have based upon the examples of resource questions that we use in a resource conversation. So go ahead.
Marzuki, I got one question.
Yes,
what one resource could you develop that would transform this situation? Can further explain this?
If you recall, in APG, we have a pattern called the miracle question. If you can read, so yeah, it's based upon the Disney pattern of getting into your imagination, fantasy, going into your make-believe what if. So yeah, one of the ways that we operate in this world is we have that part of us that is highly imaginative. So the question that you posed just now is a question that is designed to trigger a person to go into the imaginative part. As Einstein puts it, you cannot solve the problem that you are facing today based upon your current way of thinking. So with our current way of thinking, we are thinking inside that box, and because of that, we feel stuck. So one way of getting out of that box is to use imagination. What if I don't face this problem? So that question is designed to take the person out of the box, to go into the imagination and find a creative solution.
Got it. This is very powerful. Like the magic miracle questions.
Yes, miracle question. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Guat-Ching. Yeah. Anyone else has got any questions or comments?
And one more question, Marzuki.
Yes.
What would it be like if you did step into that state of mind and body or emotion and fully experience it?
Mm-hmm.
What would it be like? So what is this?
Yes, thank you. This question is to remember I mentioned that we communicate from state to state, we relate from state to state, and it is through our states that we are driving our speech and behavior, and also our states are interacting with our thinking feeling. So in order to solve a problem, the problem is this is where we are now, our current state, and we want to get to our desired state. Okay? The problem is how to bridge that gap. In order to move from one place to the other, we need to be in the right state. The wrong state will not give us enough energy to travel that. So that question is about getting the person to test drive the state of resourcefulness, because the person may be experiencing unresourceful state because the person is fixed on the problem, looking at the problem, causing the person to feel more and more unresourceful, just looking at the problem, getting more and more unresourceful. In order to snap the person out of that unresourceful state, one way through this question is to imagine if you are in that resourceful state, just go inside that, test drive and feel that. So the moment you get into that state, what will happen is that your thinking and feeling will be in a different direction. Now you have the resources to look into, so what are the additional resources that I can use in order to go in there? So when we talk about, part of being a coach is to be able to induce states, induce people into resourceful state. So noticing that the person is in an unresourceful state, and from that unresourceful state, they will not be able to solve the problem. So using that question to shift into a state that is more resourceful, imaginatively, being into that state of more greater resourcefulness, and then beginning to come up with the solutions. So again, I mentioned to you, a coach doesn't advise or tell. So sometimes people are seduced into advising, right? So instead of advising how you should feel, you are using questions to get them to access those states, instead of you telling them to be to go into that.
Okay, got it. Understood. Very clear.
Right. Thank you, Guat-Ching. So, anyone else? Everyone okay with that?
I like all the powerful questions. Later, I will do the test for myself.
Yeah, I mean that it boggles your mind as you ask those questions of yourself. For example, like taking into our current situation in this lockdown, in this pandemic situation, and beginning to ask ourselves some of those questions in order to shift our focus to be more resourceful about things. And I wonder if you have access, met somebody, a friend or a family, and many people are feeling stressed and unresourceful. I would, instead of unresourceful, I will use the word they are feeling stressed, and the buzzword now is mental health. People are feeling mentally unhealthy because they are being fed through the echo chamber. They are being fed with so much negative thinking about the pandemic, about the lockdowns, that's causing them to be fearful about their future. So having these questions will be useful in that way. So use it for yourself.
Yes, I like the keyword imaginative and just think out of the box. Just imagine you are not struggling with your current situation, but you look outside of the struggling part, and what you can see is much more of hopes or solution or a better life.
Yes, thank you, Guat-Ching. Danielle?
Yes, I have a question. For this resources questions, is there a particular order to ask those questions, or like a certain structure that we need to follow? We always start with this type and then followed by the next, or there's no particular order?
No particular order. You need to determine what kind of dance. Is that a waltz? Is that a rumba? Is that a cha-cha?
Okay.
However, these questions come when we are in the resource conversation. Remember the SCORE model. You have current state, you have your desired state. To specify your desired state, we have the well-formed outcome question. Right? So once you have the well-formed outcome, the person knows where they are, where they need to go, and then you move into the resource conversation. Resource conversation is the conversation we are bringing them from A to B, from where they are now to where they are going. So this is where this conversation comes in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, right. Anyone else has got any questions or comments? I'm always excited whenever Mark is around, because Mark is coaching people in the area of sports. This is about physical development. So I like to hear some examples that Mark experiences in coaching athletes in that way.
Hi, Mr. Marzuki. Actually, I was just thinking how I can actually craft these questions towards my athletes, using this to empower them a little bit more to get their goals, how to consistently remind them to keep on track. So yeah, I was just having some thoughts before you asked this question. It's really interesting because I think the swimmers which I deal with sometimes in the age group of 12 years old to around 15, 16, sometimes they are a little bit different nowadays in this current age and time. They don't take direct instruction so well. We're just conveying the message over. So nowadays kids like it in a different manner, different approach, different way. They like to be talked to like young adults. And I think these are some really good questions that I can use to try to get them on track and try to move their game to a different level if I need to, instead of forcing, because I see a lot of potential in swimmers, in my kids, of course, my swimming kids, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to tap because they're not so focused at that age. Like Marilyn, Marilyn at the age of like 11, 10, 9, 10, 11, 12, she wanted to go to the Olympics. She had like strong goals. Most of my swimmers now, not so hungry.
Not so hungry.
Not so hungry. Maybe
You're
like
being very polite, Mark.
yeah. So sometimes they need a bit of kick in the ass. They need a little bit of motivation. Different types of motivation. Sometimes a little bit of harshness. Sometimes a little bit of positive side. Sometimes a little bit of pat on the back. Different types of angles that I can use, and this is one of the tools I think that might come in really handy. So yeah, very interesting. Thanks, Mr. Marzuki.
Thank you. So what you are describing there, Mark, is the motivation axis. So as a coach, you need to play that frequently, moving away from going towards. You need to you see, this is we call that achievement drive. Some people have strong achievement drive. You describe Marilyn. When you describe Marilyn, that sounds to me as somebody who has high achievement drive, and yet others, they have low achievement drive. So that all goes back to the motivation and the meanings of the goals that they have for themselves. So playing with the moving away from and going towards, and the meanings of what they are going towards, and also what they are running away from. And one of the things that many people don't realize, I'm looking around if I have a coin or what. Okay, let me just get a coin over here. I think I've got a coin here. It's a small coin, never mind. One of the things that people don't realize is when they make decisions, they are just looking at the decision that they make. So let me see here. Okay, so this is the 50 cents coin. So you can see the 50 cent, right? So when people say, I want the 50 cent, so they are just looking at this one. But making a decision of wanting this means that you have made a decision of not having this. So sometimes as a coach, you need to get them to notice that. So when you decide you want this, know that you have decided not to have this.
Right.
And for some people, that will put them back.
Yeah.
They may decide on something that is comfortable for them. But by deciding on what's comfortable to you now, they are going to face a consequence that is going to be very uncomfortable in the future. So to be able to bring that through the coaching, through the questioning.
Yeah. I need to try to put in the right frame so that my students understand. Yeah, and try to, yeah. But sometimes, sometimes I tend to have the influence in trying to negate towards a direction. So I tend to point to certain questions that, skew towards the direction. Of course, sometimes I'm a bit biased because, obviously, I'm a bit biased towards swimming. I would like them to swim a little bit more. So, yeah. But of course, I think it's very interesting. Hopefully, I'm using it in the right way.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. So that's decision. Yeah. The word decision comes from the word scission. Scission means cut.
Right.
So you are cutting. So when you decide on this, you have cut that you are not going to get this. So sometimes people need to be reminded about that. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, so just covering on a little bit more, a couple of things mentioned over here. That the challenge in coaching a resource conversation is to not get seduced in the content of the client story and to avoid any and all advice giving. Okay, to not get seduced into the content. We want to go into the frames, the meta levels. And I would just like to mention here that coaching is not about giving advice, fixing, doing therapy, or consulting. That's not coaching. So that's why we use questions. We are getting the client to come out with what it is that is inside of them. Coaching is about eliciting from the client the inner resources. And because we are not them, we don't know what the inner resources are. It is only through questions that we can bring those resources out. So that when the client is able to see their inner resources, they're able to access those, then they can take full responsibility and ownership of his or her own discoveries and decisions. It is in that way that we facilitate another person to become inwardly empowered. Okay, so it all boils down to the decisions that they have made. So, for example, in the example that I was having a discussion with Mark just now, with children going through sports, swimming. So, what are the decisions that they have made? So, if the decision is that I just want to go for swimming, I'm not interested in competition and all that. So that's what's preventing them from making that commitment. If that person, that child, 12, 13 years old, has made a decision, I'm going to be in the Olympics. So that is the decision that is going to power the person. Okay. So to sum up what we have discussed this evening is that because coaching is about finding, accessing, building, applying, and installing resources, coaching inevitably engages in resource conversations. It is present in all coaching conversations. To facilitate the engagement of a resource conversation, a meta coach will resist the seduction of content in order to work at the meta level structure, not the content, going to the meta level structure. The meta coach will also need to be able to hear, recognize, and call forth inner resources that the client presents, but does not notice. The test of an effective resource conversation is that the client walks away feeling empowered. Feeling empowered is that sense that I am in control of my basic powers, my core powers, in charge of his or her own life, and more alive with the vitality to take on the presenting challenges in life. So they don't need to borrow power from someone. So when we as a coach, we begin to advise or give suggestions, we are as if putting the client in the position that they have to lean on us in order to have power. So that's why asking resource questions allows them to pick their own resources that they feel that they are in full charge of their lives. Okay, so those basically are what we have discussed for this session. So I would just like to open for any questions that you may have with respect to what we've discussed on the resource conversations this evening. Any questions? In this session on the resource conversation, we talk about three main points. One is the theoretical framework. The second one is resources in the power matrix. And I gave you a list of the resource questions that we can ask the client in order to go into and bring forth the resources that they have. So I hope that by attending this session this evening, you'll have a clearer idea of what it is that we mean by resources in a person. How do we bring those resources out, and what are the states that the person will have when you have those resource conversation? So when the person feels empowered, they also have, when you feel empowered, you have energy, and you'll be able to take action for that. So they'll feel greatly motivated to go forth and achieve what it is that they want. It's just that this is what we are doing, is that we are not giving people motivation. So it is not about giving motivation. It is about helping them to achieve or to actualize the powers that they have in order to take charge of their life. So that's basically what we are doing in the resource conversation. Okay, so before we end, I would just like to invite each and every one of you, if you would like to give your comments about what it is that you have gained from this session. So I'd like to go through each and every one of you. If you don't mind, Siti Mariam, I know you joined in much later, but based upon what we have just covered, may I have some comments from you? Just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, selamat malam semua. So I come in late, so tak berapa banyak sangat input yang saya boleh dapat tadi. Tapi overall, okay lah.
Saya perasan tadi you came in slightly later. However, what I'll do is I'm recording this session, so I'll be sending the link of this meeting, and my practice is it is not made public. So when I send you the link, it is only for you. I'll send the link only to those people who register, whether they are here or they are not able to come here. I'll send the link. However, it is not for the general public. It is only for the people who register. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cik Marzuki.
This is to protect to have a sense of privacy to what it is that we are discussing. So next person, Noshila, if I may invite you, if you would like to say a few things. It's been quite some time we've come across. Go ahead. Are you able to unmute your mic and your comments, please? No? Okay, thank you. So I'll move on to Sue. Go ahead, Sue.
I guess, you know, the fact that we have all resources inside us, it's nice to know. But the challenge sometimes is to convince other people that they have, you know, and to try and bring it out. I think that's a huge challenge, especially when they don't want to, or they have, I don't know, whatever you call, baggage that they have with them. So it's hard to uncover that. Yeah. But
thank you for that point, Sue. Yeah. That is why the prerequisite for coaching is the person coachable. So that will be the first hurdle. Once the person is coachable, then all of this can come into play. Yeah. So what you mentioned just now, Sue, is the point whether they have crossed the threshold or not. Once they have crossed the threshold, they want to be coached, then there is a lot that we can work on. If they have not crossed that threshold, they have not decided if they want to be coached or not, don't coach them. It will be a waste of your time. It will be a waste of their time. So if you want to help the person, is to get the person to first decide that they want to be coached. Because once they decide, now they are on this over here, then we can use the coaching framework in order to help them.
How would you help them to go over there?
So, so this is using the motivation axis I mentioned just now, as I was discussing the point that Mark mentioned. The motivation axis is on one end of the scale is running away from. Running away from are the things that they don't want about their current situation. Then on the other end of the motivation axis is what is it that they desire, that they want in their lives. So having a conversation of, if they stay here, what is the consequence? If they move away from where they are now to work on something, get something done in their lives. So what is it that they will experience there? So having the conversation to the extent that they make a decision, the decision is, no, I don't want this anymore. I want this. So that decision is the one that we are looking for. So that's why in the coaching conversation, we have the axis of change. The first axis is the axis of motivation, to have that conversation. So over here, it's also very important for us to understand how people run their motivation axis. Some people are going towards, some people are running away from. So what we need to do is we want to get that balance tipped, so that what they want becomes so big, what they don't want becomes so awful, because once that scale tips so high, that will get them to make that decision. So for example, in the current situation that they are facing, they are having a lot of let's say relationship issues with the people that they have around them, and bring up to the nth degree. If they continue on this way, what will happen? So going into the consequence, that this becomes so undesirable, so detestable, and then exploring on this side what it is that they can experience in life, what are the possibilities that they will experience in life. So that becomes so desirable that now the equation has tipped so much that they feel that, no, I cannot afford to stay here anymore. It's too painful. To increase this pain so much that it is now unbearable, that they decide to move away from that. So that is the first one. Once they make that decision, then they can become coachable to go into the next axis of the coaching change. Yeah. So does that make sense, Sue?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
So don't try to coach someone who has not made the decision to change. If it is a little bit crude, however, Robert Kiyosaki used this analogy because he was talking in the context of people going into the stock market, investing in the stock market, and probably you know that there are people who are professional investors, institutional investors. They go into the stock market for long-term investment. They have multiple investments in line, so they are serious about stock market. They understand the stock market. They learn about the stock market. And there are also people who are dabblers, who are just gamblers. Basically, they just want the tips. They do not really want to learn about the stock market. So the professional investors are very happy to have these gamblers around them, because that's how the professional investors make money. They make money from these people. So these people, they call them pigs. Pigs are, they go to the slaughterhouse to get slaughtered. So these people, they go into the stock market to be slaughtered by the institutional investors. So in the investment climate, especially in the States, they have this saying, don't try to teach pigs to sing. It will only annoy them, and they will never learn to sing anyway. So in the context of these gamblers, don't try to teach them the fundamentals of investment. They are not interested in that. They just want the tips. So if you try to teach them, they get annoyed. So similarly, people who have not made the decision for growth, for change, to be coached, we attempt to coach them, that will only make the relationship sour. That will annoy them. That will make it uncomfortable to them. It will only change when they make the decision, I want to change and I want to become better. These people, when we coach them, then they will take it and run with it. Yeah. So I hope that's helpful. So we coach people who are coachable.
Okay.
Not everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Question, Marzuki. If let's say this person is not coachable, we just let it be.
Not to say let it be, Guaching. If you notice that their current trajectory, the current way of living that they are living, is bringing them to that they will be hurt or harmed later. They may suffer mental depression, or they may be emotionally very badly affected. And we notice that through ecology, that what they are doing right now is not ecological for them. It may cause them harm. It may cause somebody else harm. Then we need to use our powers of persuasion in order to influence them to make the decision for change. So I'll repeat that, to make that decision for change. So they need to make that first decision. They need to say that I messed up, I need help. Because so that is the awareness, bringing them to the awareness about the criticalness of their situation. And once they notice that it is critical and they make the decision, so we need to have that awareness before change can occur. So it doesn't mean that if we see people, especially the people who are related to us, people who are close to us, and we notice that what they are doing is harmful to them, harmful to people around them, it doesn't mean that we have to, and they are not ready to change, we just push them aside. No. Whatever that it is within us that we can help to influence them to make the decision, we do it. We use our powers of communicating, our powers of relating, in order to communicate to them the criticalness of their situation. However, ultimately, we need to realize that the decision to change belongs to them. So if we have exhausted our avenues in order to convince them, and they still decide not to change, and that's entirely up to them. And we need to realize that we have reached the limit of our boundary with them. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that we have to wait for everybody to be ready to be coached, then we coach them. We notice that some people, they need to be coached, and many people, they may not realize it. So that's where the skill of communicating and relating comes in. Keep watching.
Yes, good points. Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, watching. Yeah. So Mark, anything from you before we end?
No, thank you, Mr. Marzuki.
Thank you, Mark. And Danielle, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Marzuki, for today's sharing. I think it's really great to know that as human, we have all the resources that we need to be successful. And I now have a new perspective when I look at the word human resources. It's not only about manpower or people that we have in the company, but it is more than that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Danielle. And last but not least, Guaching, do you have anything additional?
Thank you, Marzuki. I learned a lot today. Good points.
Right. Thank you very much, Guaching. So with that, everyone, I would like to thank all of you for being here with me this evening. I hope that you have gained something of value for yourself. And I look forward to seeing you again in the next session. Just as an announcement, next week we shift our theme to parenting. So next week we'll be focusing in the topic of parenting. The meta coaching discussion will be next month, the third week next month. So with that, again, thank you very much, everyone. So stay safe, do whatever that you can in order to keep yourself and your family safe. And may God bless all of you. So I'll see you again when I see you again. So thank you very much. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Encik
Bye.
Marzuki. Good night.
Thank you.